Hello, my name is Avital Meshi, and today I'm going to talk about the artwork Deconstructing Whiteness, which focuses on the visualization of racial bias in facial recognition algorithm. In order to explain the thought process which led me to create this artwork, I will briefly show you a few other artworks that I created. These artworks are also inspired by ethical considerations regarding the application of facial recognition algorithms. I will then discuss the conceptual background for the piece, and I will finish my talk by sharing some speculations regarding the future. Before I start, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Avital Meshi, and I'm a new media and a performance studies artist. I completed my Bachelor of Fine Art at the School of the Art Institute in Chicago, and my Master of Fine Art at the University of California with an emphasis on digital arts and new media. This coming fall, I will be starting my PhD program at UC Davis with an emphasis on performance studies. Currently, in my work, I focus on new media such as artificial intelligence and specifically facial recognition algorithms. And I also work with social VR with a focus on avatar embodiment. I consider my work as always revolving around questions of identity and opportunities for identity transformation. When I come to think of AI and face recognition algorithms, one of the things that I find to be highly problematic is the asymmetric gaze. Face recognition algorithms are embedded in our environment, in products and services that we use on a daily basis, but we hardly ever know that they are there. Therefore, we don't know where and when we are being looked at, and we don't know who is looking at us and why we are being looked at. And maybe most importantly, we don't know how we are being seen through the lens of these algorithms. Being so worried about this asymmetrical gaze and relationship, I decided to create the classification cube, which is a mysterious looking, glowing, and semi-private space, which invites viewers to step inside. And once inside, viewers are confronted with two screens. One of the screens shows the body of the viewer, and the other shows a looping video of animated avatars. You can see the video displayed on this presentation. Bodies on both screens are being subjected to the analysis of a recognition algorithm, which estimates their gender, age, emotional expression, and behavior. The idea behind this piece is to allow some sort of an intimate engagement between the human and the machine so that people will be able to see for themselves how their bodies and other bodies are being detected and analyzed by the algorithm. In the space, obviously, people noticed that on many occasions, the system did not detect them in consistency with how they identify themselves. So for instance, if we consider gender, many female viewers told me that the system saw them as males. Another example is that non-binary identifying people were unsatisfied by the fact that the system either detected them as male or as female and never showed any non-binary gender labels. So these are just examples of people who found themselves being mislabeled inside the space. One of the interesting things that happened inside the classification cube is that people became engaged in a performative manner in an attempt to control the way the system detected them. So people started asking questions like, how can I make the system see me as female, despite the fact that I am a male? How can I make the system see me as younger or as older? Can I convince the system that I'm happy or angry, and so on? And here you can see a documentation of myself spending time inside the classification cube and performing different behaviors to the system. I find the idea of letting viewers become familiar with how face recognition works to be very compelling. Therefore, I decided to design this piece, which is called Face It, And it's an interactive magnetic board game which invites participants to play with facial elements and compose different faces. A face recognition system constantly scans the faces that are being produced and displays the analysis of the face recognition. I think that getting the notion of who uses the algorithm and how the algorithm analyzes faces is an important one to become familiar with. An example of a use that was very upsetting to many people is given by the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandals that took place during the 2016 US presidential election, in which AI algorithms were used to learn more about voters and to know, to find out ways to shift their political opinions. During the 2020 elections, I kept thinking that it would have been wonderful if we could shift the gaze and use AI algorithms in order to learn more about the candidates instead of having the candidates learn more about the voters. So I created this piece, which was some sort of a performance that took place during the presidential debate. And a facial recognition analysis was scanning the candidates' faces, and this whole performance was streamed live on Facebook so people could see the debate while also learning some other aspects about the candidates using a facial recognition algorithm. Obviously, this little demonstration of mine was not really giving any information that was too essential. It was mainly made to demonstrate the point by which, we have to ask who is using the algorithms and for what reason. It was still interesting to note that the amount of time in which the candidates were detected by this facial algorithm as male, white, old, and angry was really the majority of the time. And it makes one think about the typical presidential candidate. So when we come to think of the uses of AI, we can talk about another scandal that was revealed in relation to an algorithm that was designed to assist judges to score convicts regarding their expected recidivism. And through a research by ProPublica journalists, it was demonstrated that this algorithm was biased against Black defendants. The algorithm was more likely to flag Black defendants as future criminals compared with white defendants, while white defendants were mislabeled as low risk more often. When specifically we consider the potential bias in face recognition algorithms, it is important to note the research made by MIT scholars Joy Bolomwini and Timnit Gebru, who evaluated commercially used facial recognition models and demonstrated that they were showing intersectional biases against darker-skinned women. Bolomwini's work, which led her to testify at the Congress hearing on facial recognition technology, is fascinating and is well documented in Shalini's Kanta's movie, Coded Bias, which I highly recommend watching. I think it's a good documentation of the problematic nature of face recognition technology and the bias it potentially can perpetuate. The artwork Deconstructing Whiteness is a sort of a private examination which visualizes the problematic nature of facial recognition algorithms when it comes to the analysis of race. For this project, I used an off-the-shelf algorithm, which I found on GitHub. The algorithm was developed to have the ability to detect racial labels. The information regarding the design and the data that was used for the development of this algorithm can be seen in GitHub, but for the purposes of the creation of this work, it wasn't very important. I was more curious about how this specific algorithm analyzes my own face and how it estimates my own racial visibility. When I spend time with this algorithm, I notice that it recognizes me as white more often than any other racial label. This is despite the fact that I do not identify as a white person. I created this work and did this experimentation right after the murder of George Floyd. And being a Jewish person with a family history of great suffering from brutal racism, alongside being an immigrant in the United States, I feel as if I really need to learn about manifestation of racism in general, and specifically to understand white supremacy and how it can infiltrate into structures of products that we become engaged with in a daily basis. So I decided to spend time specifically with this white label. And since it was wrongly detecting me as white with a relatively high confidence level, I asked myself whether or not I can make the system see me as less or more confident regarding my whiteness. So basically, the work is a recording of myself performing different facial expressions to the algorithm, interacting with it throughout a period of 10 minutes. During these 10 minutes, I changed my hairstyle and I used my hands and fingers to make all kinds of different face distortions. During the performance, it was hard for me to fully understand the impact of my actions on the results of the analysis, unless I noticed some moments in which it was very obvious, and I'll show it to you in a few slides. Following the performance, I analyzed the outcomes of the analysis by sorting out all the classifications and creating this grid that you can see on this slide. I sorted the classifications from lowest confidence level to the highest. You can see here at the upper left corner of this collage, the image in which I scored the label white at the lowest confidence level. At the right bottom corner, you would see the image in which I scored the highest confidence level for the label white. And then the confidence level goes up from left to right alongside the grid. So the upper few lines are with the lowest confidence level regarding whiteness, and the lowest lines are, it goes up as it goes down the grid. So this inquiry of mine is not a scientific experiment, and I can't say anything about it that would be a proof of something general or specific. Yet I think that as a private inquiry, it could still raise some disturbing images like the one that we see in this slide, in which it is shown that when my hair looks frizzy and when I use my fingers to slant my eyes, the confidence level regarding the label white drops. But when my hair seems straighter and when I use my fingers to cover my eyebrows, the confidence level regarding this white label goes up. Here in this video, you can see an excerpt of the video documentation of the performance. And you can see this specific moment in which I realized that slanting my eyes with my fingers has this instant effect on the confidence level regarding the label white. For me, this moment of the performance is a moment of revelation in which I could actually follow up with a specific mechanism by which the algorithms sees me, and I could explain how the algorithms decides what is its confidence level regarding the label white. So deconstructing whiteness follows ideas that come from the theory of the new aesthetic. This theory, which was developed by artist and writer James Bridle, notices the presence of a visual language of the digital technology of our contemporary culture. Bridle calls us to wave at the machine and see how it waves back at us. So basically, in order to understand this language by which we can form a dialogue with machines, we are advised to spend time with them. We are told that there is a need to explore and understand how exactly these machines flow and function so that we better understand how to modulate or even sabotage them. I think that once we understand how such systems work, we have a better standing point by which we can realize the impact that such systems might have on our lives. For that, I'm following conceptions of Donna Haraway's Cyborg reality, in which we form some sort of a kinship with the machines that are around us. And within this kinship, we can demand liberation from a techno-chauvinist culture. This also includes liberation from systemic racism and oppression, which are embedded into the technology. I also think that in the cyborg reality, there is an opportunity to embrace partial identities and contradicting standpoints and see what we can learn from them about the self, about others, and about society as a whole. And something that I think is demonstrated in a beautiful way in deconstructing whiteness is the opportunity to let go of binaries and embrace the potential of looking at the world as a flow of probabilities, especially when it comes to identity. Lastly, I want to talk about performance as a tool with which we can become engaged with systems like AI algorithms. Following Karen Barad's ideas of posthumanist performativity, we are reminded that such systems are intermingled with people. If our appearance is the input of this system, changes to our appearance will impact the output that these systems produce. So within the entanglement between the human and the machine, we can find some agency. As you could see when I changed my facial expressions and when I changed my hairstyle, I found moments in which I could control my own visibility. I think that finding a sense of agency is essential when we come to deal with so-called intelligent algorithms. These algorithms are designed in a way that we might be tempted to let them decide things for us, but we must not forget how to get back the control over these algorithms. With that, it is important for me to say that the fact that I was able to trick the algorithm doesn't mean that anyone else can do it in the same manner. And this is important because part of understanding the bias is understanding who can manipulate the algorithm and who cannot. And moreover, with deconstructing whiteness, we see how the algorithm uses external cues in order to estimate a person's racial background. This physiognomic analysis is a debunked practice which was used in some very dark moments in our history. The use of a performative behavior is demonstrated as an effective tool in this specific case, but it also brings up the question regarding our future, asking ourselves if we are approaching a minority report future in which changes to our appearance is our only escape from systems of surveillance. I will end this presentation by telling you about another artwork I made, which follows those exact thoughts and questions regarding the power dynamics between the human and the machine. The piece is called Don't Worry, Be Happy, which is a performance with an AI face recognition algorithm. During the performance, I am sitting on an electric chair while my face is constantly scanned by an emotion recognition algorithm. As long as the algorithm detects me as happy, I am safe. However, if any other emotion is detected, I receive an electric shock to both my arms. The performance is a durational piece in which I am determined to hold my smile as long as possible in order to liberate myself from the punishment that is delivered by the system. The entanglement between the human and the machine in this case requires the human to change their apparent behavior in order to trick the machine. So I sit there and hold my smile as if my life depends on it. I guess that for some, this would be seen as a dystopian imagination of the future. But I think that when we come to examine algorithms closely, we can understand that their impact on our lives becomes a crucial one. And as such, it becomes clear that their ethical consideration is essential. Thank you so much for listening to this talk, and you can see more of my work in this website. Thank you.